everybody. Welcome. So glad you're here today. Do me a favor in the comments section, put where you're from and tell me if you've ever dealt with a tantruming child before. I'm sure some of you have. I know I have. I think every parent has at some point. So put it in the comments below and let me know. Oh, and that message up there says, let me know if your children currently help around the house. Ignore that. That's an old one. Clearly, I've not been on here for, I think it's been 2 weeks now. I forget what the first week was the conflict, and then I had COVID last week, believe it or not. Third time I think I've had it. Nothing big, but the worst I felt of all the times I've had it. So, hope you all stay safe. And my mother and her roommate in the skilled nursing facility did end up getting it, so they're both fine now. Okay, before we get into the tantruming and the happy home agreements, a couple things I want to touch base about. Number one is, when my kids were growing up, I know how busy, as a mom or dad you are. You barely have time to breathe during the day. But I would try to get up about an hour earlier before my kids, sometimes like 4 o'clock in the morning, just to have time to, like, what I call have my quiet time. And I would journal and I would read. And for me, that was really important. And now I mean, it's a practice I've done for a very long time. I still do it. So I recently created the Busy Mom 5-minute journal. It'll be on Amazon the next couple of days. So be on the lookout for that. It's really something you could probably do in 3 minutes, but it's just something for you to ground yourself with first thing in the morning to get yourself ready for the day. Okay, so be on the lookout for that. The second thing is, I did a reel, I don't know, a month ago maybe, called The 4 Truths. It was 4 truths you need to teach your children as you're preparing them as they're growing up to go out in the world. And I think the first one was like, the world does not revolve around them. And they go on from there. Anyway, there's many more truths, but that was just 4, and that hit a lot of views. I think almost 3 million. So go back and watch that reel if you've not, because it's really important as parents. We prepare our children for what they're going to face in the world. It's not always beautiful. It's not always unicorn sunshine and rainbows. So part of our job as a parent is to address that. Okay, somebody's popping in here. I can't see who it is. But anyway, all right. And then the other thing is, hold on, there we are. Okay. The other thing is, I did a reel yesterday called Flip the Switch. And it was about, instead of you saying, oh, I have to make dinner tonight, it's like, no, I get to make dinner tonight. And when you flip that switch, your whole attitude changes. Your perspective is different. And it was really driven home to me. I mean, I've always been a pretty positive, happy person, but it was driven home to me. About 12 years ago, my son was in the Army stationed overseas. And long story short, we resettled a family to this country. It was mom and dad, 4 children. I think the youngest was 5, oldest child was 12 at the time. And things that we take for granted every single day, they were blown away by. I'll just give you a couple quick examples. We took them into Walmart because we were helping set up the house and we needed to get a few things. And they were stunned that they were allowed to walk in the store and just shop, just go in and pick out what they wanted. Because they said in their country, that wasn't the case. They had to stand at the front of the store and somebody would go get it and bring it to them. They weren't allowed to go in and shop. So that was really mind-blowing for them. Again, something we just take for granted. And then the biggest thing that struck me was the kids were amazed they got to go to school, okay, because they said in their country that wasn't always the case. And that they would walk into a classroom and there was maybe 20 or 25 students in the room, and everyone had their own desk and their own books and paper and pencils. And in their country, there would be 50 kids in a room if they got to go to school that day. And they would have to share desks. They would take turns sitting at the desks or on the floor because there weren't enough. And they had to share books, paper, and pencils. So for them, it was like a gold mine that they got to go to school and they had their own stuff. Incredible, right? And sometimes, our kids there are like, oh, I have to go to school. And they were like, yay, we get to go to school. So just teach your kids and remind yourself to just flip that switch a little bit whenever you get that overwhelm or you feel burdened or whatever. Okay. Let's go into, I'm going to see if I can see these comments here, and why I'm not able to, I don't know. Let me go comments. Oh, here we go. Okay, thank you, Lauren. I just saw that, thank you. Okay, let's get into tantrums. Now, I don't know if any of you have ever dealt with a tantrum with your children, or you've seen a child tantruming. Most likely you have. I have 4 children. I only had one that really tantrumed in the store one time. And I did a reel about that. Now this was, she's now 30, almost 39 years old. So this was a while ago, but she was 2 at the time. And I handled it the way I handled it. I did a reel about it. That had 4 million views. And that was probably a couple of years ago I posted it. And I did it again about a month ago and it's had 2 million views. And it's still rising. It is a hot button topic for people. And I'm going to tell you how I would handle it. You may agree or not agree, and that's perfectly fine. What I love about the platform I have on Facebook and to do these lives is I'm all about common sense parenting. So I'm going to tell you what I think. And you don't have to agree, right? But I love that we have this platform to have this open discussion. There's no judgment, there's no criticism. You be you, I'll do what I do, and hopefully we can support and encourage one another. Okay, tantruming. Here you go. If your child's tantruming, first thing, you may be responsible for it. Now, let me back up. I'm not judging, but let me back up. Before you take your child into a situation, first, are they tired? Are they hungry? Are they sick? Do they just not want to go to that place? So as a parent, you need to judge that. A lot of times when you see children tantruming, it's the grocery store, right? Because usually, or it's a store, take them into Target because they want a toy and you tell them no. All right, so here's what happens. You go into the store with your child. They're happy, they're rested, they're fed, everything's good, right? And they want to go to the store because they're excited to go into Target with you. And so you go in and they see something they want and you say, not today, or we have to wait. And they proceed to throw themselves on the floor and have a fit. Here we go. Now, as a parent, usually the first response is like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? How am I going to handle this? People are looking at me. My child's having a fit and screaming. Okay, if your child is just tantruming. Now, my daughter threw herself on the floor. She was 2 in a grocery store. Threw herself on the floor because I wouldn't buy her candy and pitched a fit, as we say in the South. Pitched a fit, laid herself on the floor and just cried. Now, not loud, but she was like boo-hooing. And I just walked away. I walked away. I went around the corner, and in end cap, she couldn't see me. I could see her, and I didn't say a word. I ignored her totally, okay? Now, people said to me, that's abandonment. No, it's not. She's 2. She doesn't remember it. It's not abandonment. I was right there. Someone's going to come steal her in today's day. Someone could come and take her. If somebody's going to come and take a screaming child, I don't think so. They're going to run the opposite direction. And I was close enough that I could grab her if I needed to. So, granted, that was a long time ago. Okay. Hello, Adriana. Hello. So the situation for me was I just ignored it. And that's what you should do. You never, ever feed a tantrum. Ever. And I hear people say, no, you know how I feel about gentle parenting, right? And so I have people say, no, you get on the floor, you hug them, you help them regulate, you validate their emotions and their feelings. No, you don't. They're 2 or they're 3. They don't have the capacity to reason. They're in a rage. They're not hearing you anyway. You're wasting your breath. What you do is you turn your back completely on your child. You can either turn your back, you walk away far enough that they can't hit you or touch you. You can turn your back, look at your phone. Look around the store. You pay no attention. I mean, no eye contact, no talking, no physical touch, nothing. Totally ignore your child. Totally. Okay? When they stop, when they're done, you go, take their hand, and go about your business. Now, that's if they're throwing a fit 30 seconds a minute. If your child is a screamer, and they're going to scream whether they're on the floor, whether they're in the shopping cart and they're screaming and kicking and crying because you didn't give them what they wanted. If they're to that point, and let me just say, if your kid is in the cart and they're pitching a fit, turn your back, again, walk away. Don't let yourself be within reach where they can kick you or smack at you. Ignore them. Now, that's for like a minute or less. If they're going to scream and continue to scream, you need to remove your child from the store. Take them out. And I have had parents say, well, that's too bad. My kid can scream through the whole store and I don't care what people think of me. I'm getting my shopping done. You be you, but I disagree with that. People should not be subjected to your child screaming their head off. Okay, that's not why they're there to shop, and they don't need to hear your child. It's your responsibility as a parent to handle that behavior. And I had one lady say, well, why is it punishing me when I can't get my shopping done? And I'm like, well, this is not about you. This is about your child, and you're the parent, and you're teaching them how to behave. And sometimes that's not convenient, easy, or fun, right? So what do you do in that case? Okay, a couple of things. One, you pick them up and you leave the store. Now, you can do several things here. You can either find a bench outside maybe to sit them on. Again, ignore them, don't engage, don't talk about it, don't scold them, sit them down, turn your back, let them scream. When they're done, you go back in the store and try again. If they start screaming, you do it again. It may take 2 or 3 times before they understand that this behavior is not being rewarded. The last thing you do, please, 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 whatever you do, is don't say to the child, if you stop crying, I'll give it to you or I'll buy you something. Because now you have just really set yourself up for a buffet of tantrums, okay? Or having to constantly placate your child with something. They need to learn tantrums are not acceptable behaviors, okay? So first thing you do is you go on the bench. Sit there on the bench if you absolutely have to get your shopping done that day. Because I've had parents say, I have to shop. I don't have gas money to keep going back and forth. I need to get to groceries, so what do I do? Well, there's one scenario. The other scenario is you take them to the car. You put them in the car, make sure they can breathe well in there. If it's hot, have the AC on. Make sure you have your keys. Put them in the car seat, strap them in, if they're young enough. You stand outside the car with your back to them, and you let them scream their full bloody head off, and you do not respond. People look at you, just wave, but you do not respond to the child at all. When they stop, you open the door, and then you go to the store. You don't say, well, now that you're quiet, you say nothing. You just go, come on, we're going in. You go in. The third option is you just take them home. And that's, what I suggest most people do. Pick them up, take them home. If you have somebody at home you can leave them with, like my sister had 5 kids. She's in the store. One of the 5 started acting up. She piled them all back in the car, took them home, left them with dad, and went back to the store. That's an option. Do it. I've had people say, I took them home, called a babysitter, went back to the store. I've had other people say, I just went home, I ordered groceries, I had them delivered. Or you order groceries, and I picked them up later. You have options here, okay? Not always fun, not always easy, not always convenient. But as a parent, you need to teach your child how you expect them to behave. And when they're that young, they can't reason, they don't care. They're all about themselves and how they feel. And they're going to act out however they need to act out to try to get their way. So remember, I don't know how many lives ago it was, we talked about responsibility, accountability, and consequences, and how that's in everything we do in life and our children. So the responsibility for your child is they're supposed to behave when you go in the store, right? The accountability part is they behave. And if they don't, the consequence is you take them out. Letting them scream in the store only feeds that. It encourages that because they know, well, we're going to go in the store and I can scream my head off and mom's going to shop anyway. So why not? I might as well scream my head off and have fun while I'm at it. No, nobody wants to hear that. And I get it. I love children. Please, I've worked with children for 40 years. Screaming kid in the store does not bother me in the least. But there are people that it does. And so it's not fair to them that they're subjected to your child's behavior because you are not parenting as you should parent. Okay? That's my 2 cents worth. Okay. And I see, Adriana, I said in the very beginning, you may have missed this, I'm sorry, but as this was the old thing was saying, tell me if they help around the house. So I'll respond to that a little bit later. But there is Happy Home Agreements we're going to talk about in a minute. But I also did the responsibility chart. If you go onto my Stan store, it's stan.store/Pam Palanza. There's a free responsibility chart you can download. And it explains how you put responsibilities for your kids on there, not chores. And you can watch back to my live where we talked about that in more detail. Okay, now, Happy Home Agreements. So, remember we talked about the responsibility, accountability, consequences, right? And so your child has responsibilities around the house to help out, and they're accountable for doing them, and if they don't, there are consequences. So that's more like helping around the house, keeping the house clean, doing their own laundry, whatever it is you decide as a family. Okay, that's one thing. But happy home agreements, and I don't like to call them rules because, ugh, like rules and chores just sounds like so like, ugh, to me. They're agreements. So all through life, your kids are going to have rules they have to deal with at school, in the workforce, in society, right? But in your home, you can have agreements. And this is where you sit down with your children and you say, this is how we agree we're going to conduct ourselves as a family in this home, as far as how we interact with each other. So that's behaviorally. So I have a Happy Home Agreements on my stand store. It's up there to purchase. I think it's like $6.97. Buy that if you want to, but you can also create your own. So all this is if you have younger children, say, I'd say 3 on up, maybe 2.5 depending on up, you're going to create maybe 4 or 5 agreements. And those would be things like we speak kindly to one another, we walk inside, we keep our hands to ourselves. Whatever it is you decide as a family you want to, make sure is happening in your home, you put them up there. Now with younger children, you need to put pictures because they can't read, right? So you put pictures and you can number them. Like number 1, you can have a picture of a child keeping their hands, just their hands like this or something. You can even take a picture of your own child doing those things and put them up there. This goes in a central place, your kitchen, on the fridge, or low on the wall somewhere where everyone can see it all the time. With older kids, say 6 on up, starting to read now, you can get a little more involved, maybe 6 to 10 agreements. Okay? So you sit down as a family and you say, guys, we're a team here. We have to work together. We're going to put up some agreements of how we're going to be with each other. And they're going to go up on the wall and you need to refer to them. Okay? So one of them could be, especially with older kids, we treat each other with respect. So I'm going to back up here again for a minute. Responsibility, accountability, consequences. So you agree as a family. We're always going to treat each other with respect. We're going to use kind voices. Okay, now you have a child start screaming. So the responsibility was they're going to treat each other with respect. Screaming is not respectful. Whether it's at you or another child in the family, not respectful. Their accountability is that they do that they speak with respect. The consequence is whatever you decide. So with an older kid, you can say, you know what, you'd always number them. And you can say, we agreed as a family, we're going to treat each other with respect. And when you're screaming, that's disrespectful. So here's what's going to happen. And it's not punishment. It is not scolding. It's going to be like, you know what, you're going to lose devices for 20 minutes. That's it. Immediately enforce that rule. So this is not about scolding or blaming or punishing. It's like this is a consequence. Because your children all through life are going to have consequences and everything, like I said. And it's better you teach them now than they get out in the workforce or the world or at college or wherever they go in life and think that they don't have to face consequences because they didn't ever have to at home, so why should they? And I will tell you, if you listen to employers talk now, it is just astonishing the number of young people coming into the workforce that think they don't have to have consequences for behaviors because they didn't when they were growing up. So teach your children how to deal with this and teach them that you're responsible for whatever it is we agree on. You're accountable to make it happen. And if you don't, there's a consequence for it. It's that simple. But decide what the consequences are going to be and let the kids know in advance. When you're sitting down and having this family meeting and you're saying, here's our responsibilities, our agreements are going to be this, and if you don't do these things, or if you forget one day and accidentally do it, here's the consequences, okay? Enforce them right away. Stick to them. Remember, I always talk about consistency. If you are not consistent, you're teaching your children, they don't have to listen to you because you don't mean what you say. That's just as bad as feeding a tantrum, okay? With younger children, so you may have to remind them a couple times, obviously, because they can't read and they're not going to remember as well as older kids will. So the first time they break one of the agreements, you might say, hey, listen, remember, our agreement number one is we're going to use quiet voices when we speak to each other in this house. Okay, I appreciate you making sure you do that. So a couple times you might need to remind them, because with young children, it's all about repetition, 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 repetition. I would just say a couple times, no more than that, and then enforce the consequence. That could be, you know what, buddy? We're going to go to the park in a few minutes, but we're going to have to wait about 10 minutes now because you were yelling and it's disrespectful. So we're just going to wait 10 minutes. That's it. No, like, you better go sit over there and time out and be quiet. No. It's very just matter of fact. It's not punishing. It's just matter of fact. This was the rule, the agreement, and this is what you did, and so now this is what we're going to do. That's it. You don't make a big deal out of it. You don't argue with them, okay? You enforce it. Simple, okay? And I know it's hard as a parent, and sometimes it's like really not convenient because maybe you're meeting somebody at the park. And so you were excited about going to the park and meeting your friends there, but you know what? It's not cool. And so you can't let them get away with it because it's convenient. Because then you are going to have problems. And if you think when they're young it's okay to let them get away with it, trust me, when they're teenagers, woo, absolutely not. They need to know you mean what you say when you say it, and that you're going to enforce it, and that you're going to be consistent with it, and there's not going to be discussion about it. Especially as they're older, they know. And let me tell you something, they'll figure out how to try to play you. Okay? But you have to be one step ahead of them. One step ahead at all times, especially when you have a lot of them in the house at the same time. Okay. There's one other thing I want to touch on before we go. I have a few minutes left. I did a reel the other day, and it was like, what would you do? Like, what would you do if your 12-year-old child had a friend and you saw them doing something illegal, and you went and told the parent who was a good friend of yours, and she chose to believe her child who lied to her and said, no, I didn't do that. And the mother told you, well, I choose to believe my child. Had a lot of responses from that, a lot of different scenarios of how people would handle it, and I really appreciate the feedback on that. But let me tell you the story behind that. So when my son, who's now 45, so this is a long time ago, way before cell phones where I could record anything, because people said record it and show the mom. Well, that wasn't a thing back then. Anyway, in our house we lived beside it was a lot, and the kids played out there a lot. You know, that was like their baseball field or whatever. But there were also some bushes and trees over there, and I saw this kid smoking pot over there. He was like 12 years old, and so I told his mother, because you know that was illegal. He's 12. And whether you agree with legalization or not, that's beside the point. This is a long time ago. It was illegal. He was smoking pot. So I went to his mother, and I said, hey, listen, I saw him doing this. And she said, I asked him, and he told me he didn't do it, and I believe him. And I will just tell you, this is the same mother who multiple times, not myself, but other neighbors would tell her things both of her boys had done, and they weren't illegal, but they were not very nice things. And she would say, well, I asked them and they told me they didn't do it, and I believe them. Okay, I understand that. You want to believe your children. But here's the outcome of this. This kid grew up, graduated high school. He was in his 30s, and he died of a drug overdose because he had gotten into harder drugs as he aged, and ended up passing from a drug overdose. And it was so sad. And I think back to that all the time about this poor mother and what she chose to believe about her child. And I mean, that's her prerogative, obviously. But what I want to say to you is, if you see something, and this is a friend of yours, say something. It's not always going to be the most comfortable thing to do, and you may not be believed. But I can tell you my conscience is clear because I did what I needed to do. I would want someone to come and tell me if that happened with my children. I would welcome that because I know they're not little angels, right? Kids are kids, and they're going to do things if they can try to get away with it. And I'm sure my children did things that I don't even know about. They're all grown, but it happens. So just make the effort to say something. A lot of people said, well, just ignore it. And no, I'm not. I personally am not going to choose to ignore it. I'm going to tell the mom because I would want somebody to tell me. Anyway, okay. I don't see any other comments there. What I'm going to do, okay, no other comments there. Okay, so we're going to be back in a couple weeks. I don't have anything specific as of right now I'm going to talk about. But if you have a topic you'd like me to discuss, feel free. I'm trying to see if there's any other comments. Okay. Feel free to shoot me an email at pam@carefinders.com. And it's carefinders.com. That's my email. And I will consider what you want. And also, I go back and look at my reels, and then I see comments that people have made or asked me questions. It's just easier to address them on a live than individually. So I'll do it that way. And also, last thing, I am totally revising my website. Hello, Nigeria. I'm totally revising my website. It's going to be PamelaPalanza.com. Right now it's down because I'm revising it. So everything will be on that website, everything. So the Facebook Lives will be up there, links to my reels on Facebook and Instagram, content I've created. I'm developing courses for parents and mini guides, a lot of topics and content around common sense parenting. So be on the lookout for that. I'll let you know when that is done, hopefully in the next week or two. I will get that finished. And until then, I'm going to sign off early. Remember, hug and love your babies. Bye.